Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure for this episode to be joined by Solveig Barrios, or Barrios, as I would say in Argentina. First of all, Solveig, thank you so much for taking the time for being here with us. You're in Germany; it's late at night, but thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited about this episode. I think that there's going to be a lot of really interesting things for everyone listening. First of all, I wanted everyone to get to know you. So I'm going to ask you, please introduce yourself.
Of course. And thank you for having me. It's also a pleasure for me to be here sharing this awesome space with you. So, yes, as you said, I'm Solveig Barrios. I'm the founder of the Mayan Wisdom Project, where we try to spread the ancient Mayan spirituality with the world to help people with self improvement and self development. I come from a line of Mayan spiritual leaders. So, my dad, Carlos Barrios, was a very renowned Mayan elder. And, I just grew up surrounded by the Mayan Geo-Cosmovision. Geo-Cosmovision, by the way, refers to the vision that the Mayans had on the earth and on the cosmos and how it affects us as humans and in this beautiful Mother Earth that we live in. And yeah, so I've been working with the Maya Geo-Cosmovision for some time now, but especially lately with the Mayan Wisdom Project, we're just trying to share with the world information that has never been so widely shared before. So that's what I'm doing.
Wonderful. And I'm so excited to hear throughout the episode more about the Mayan Geo-Cosmovision and the importance that a lot of the ancient teachings have for what is this moment in time. We are
Yes.
really in a moment that we need to actually have as many tools as possible to help us to connect. So I'm really interested in
Yeah.
that. But first, I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit more about what was like life growing up within all of that?
Yeah, it was very different, very special. It's not so common to grow up surrounded by this, and I feel very lucky to have been born into all of this wisdom. Perhaps as a child, I couldn't completely and fully understand that it was so magnificent and so wonderful for me to be growing up surrounded by that. But my dad started his work when he was very young. And so he spent more than 45 years really getting very deep into it. And so by the time I was born, we were traveling all around Guatemala, which is where I'm from, by the way. Uh, just practicing Mayan fire ceremonies, going to different altars, which are all in nature, the Mayan altars, by the way, and just being surrounded by so many wonderful people and really really wise spiritual leaders that perhaps other people couldn't access so easily. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I was able to truly appreciate, like, wow, I'm so lucky to be surrounded by all of this wisdom. And so for me, it was very interesting because I was, when all the little kids are drawing hearts and flowers, I was drawing nahuales and like the Mayan symbols and stuff like that. And I was going to fire ceremonies basically every week, working with Mashimon, which is a very important figure in the Maya civilization and culture that's been there forever. And so it gave me a completely different perception of life that people normally have when you grow up just without knowing all of these things. And this woke up in me a lot of curiosity when I was a kid and as a teenager, because I used to listen to very deep conversations about what's the meaning of life and the universe and the energies and how do we improve ourselves, and just seeing people come to this tradition because recently, in the last maybe decade or a little bit more, people have been really coming close to the ancient cultures and the ancient traditions. And so I saw that change too. And every year it's more and more and more just people coming to Guatemala and to all of Latin America, just trying to discover if there is a different way for life and for self development, and if there's something more, and to be able to just see the change and the improvement in those people that just came out of curiosity and shifted their lives. That was very interesting for me. And so I was like, okay, this is legit, and so um, I truly was surrounded by it. But uh, when I was a teenager, maybe old teenagers go through that phase where I'm like, I don't care. So I, was thinking about other stuff, and so when I was about 20 or something, I was like, I really want to improve myself. I want to heal myself because we all go, through different things in life. I just want to really eh, be able to become the best version of myself and to live a full life, which is obviously nothing that happens in a week or in a month. It's a life journey and a life path. And I think we are all in that same journey and that same path, and just looking for things everywhere without realizing all along I've had that information already and I was looking for it somewhere else, and then just researching about quantum physics, researching about self development, and listening to different coaches and different people that help people heal and improve and become better, and realizing, oh wow, this is exactly what the Mayan teachings are, but the practices are a little bit more in tune with other things that we don't touch in the Western society as well. And so it's more, it makes you whole, really. The idea of, for example, the Mayans believe that a whole human being has to work on four different things and balance them equally. So that's, we all have four bodies according to the Maya Geo-Cosmovision. And so that's the physical body or the material body, which, is our actual body, our health, but also our financial well-being and the ability to acquire goods. Then we have the mental body, which is the mind, the emotional body, and finally the spiritual body. And so it is to work on those four things. And so there's something that my father used to say, because when he grew up, people were so focused on money and success, which is the idea of success that the society, like, it means having a nice car, a nice house, expensive things. And so the physical body and the material body and also the mental body. So rational thinking, everything has to make sense. Everything has to be rational. There is nothing beyond what is a fact and what is rational. And so he said, people are not in balance, and the world, society is not in balance because we work only on those things.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, now we're looking at this shift where people are like, okay, let's look at spirituality too. Let's heal our emotions. So, the emotional and the spiritual body. And we're looking at that shift. But it's interesting. I have had conversations with friends that are like, oh, but I went away from that material world and came into the spiritual world, and I still have so many problems. I still haven't healed myself. So why I'm spiritual? So what's going on? And so what we say is that's the point. It's not about being just spiritual or being just material or working only on your mind, only on healing your emotions. It's about finding that balance. And so
Yeah.
once I was able to observe, okay, the Mayans truly knew how to do that, and there's practices for every single one of those bodies, and there's practices, of course, for things beyond that, as connecting with the cosmos, with nature, just healing yourself in different ways, and just vibrating with everything that exists. And I just think it's beautiful, and I know it works because I've experienced it personally. Um, so yeah, that's I'm lucky that I had all access to all of that since I was very little, and I was able to. I can't say I started studying this. I was born into it. So
Yes, yes, and
that's the story.
yeah, that's like, it's such an interesting thing that there's some people that have been blessed with being able to grow up, even if at the time, of course, as you mentioned, like you didn't realize it, and like you still grew up with that foundation. And not everyone has that, especially in the Western world nowadays.
Yeah.
As you say, like there's so much focus on the mental and physical aspects of our being, and we are not exploring our full potential as a being. Um, and I'm really interested to know, before we get in a little bit further into the actual teachings of the Mayans, would you be able to share? Because for those that don't know, the Mayans were an ancient civilization, really
Yeah.
flourishing in Latin America. Um, but there's not that many now, and there's
Yeah.
not, at least comparing to what it used to. Where in the world can people find now some of the Mayan people?
Yes. So that would be in Mesoamerica, which is the south of Mexico, all of Guatemala, and the north of Honduras. And um, it's amazing. They were an extraordinary civilization, but they are because they're very much alive. And as you said, there's been genocide, and there's been, a lot of challenges for the indigenous people of all the world, not only of Guatemala. But in Guatemala, for example, more than 50% of the population is indigenous, and the majority of the people still practice the ancient Maya Geo-Cosmovision.
Mm,
It's amazing because it's an oral tradition. All the books were burned, or not all, but the majority of the books were burned. But luckily, the Mayans have always passed on this information and wisdom from generation to generation orally. And
mm,
so that's how we still have it, and it's so alive. It was not able to be destroyed because they would have had to kill literally everyone and able to be able to destroy it. And so it's so lucky for us, and it's so wonderful for us to still have that, and to be able to, if anyone ever has the opportunity to travel to Guatemala, for example, you can go there and you can see it, and it's there, and it's very present, and it's very strong. And so that's also something that is yeah, amazing.
mm. And now, for those that, like from my experience, what
Hmm.
most people know about the Mayans is about the Mayan calendar and 2012 and the end of the world.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and that's not all that the Mayan culture is about. So I wanted to give you some time, if you would be able to share with us what is the really, like you already mentioned some things, but the
Hmm.
Geo-Cosmovision from the Mayan perspective, and what is that culture and tradition and the core teachings?
Yes. So first of all, thank you for mentioning that. I would have forgotten to touch on 2012 if you wouldn't have said it, but thank you because the Mayans never said that. So I'll start by introducing the Mayans, and then I'll get to that in a bit. But the Mayans were an extraordinary civilization. I think I was talking a little bit about finding balance, and they proved as a civilization to be able to do that in every aspect. They were amazing scientists, great astronomers and mathematicians and architects, and they were able to, really get to some amazing revelations about the universe and the earth and the cosmos. They had 7 calendars. Some of the calendars were based on the movements of the planet, and this was thousands of years ago. They had, which is remarkable. But what's even more remarkable is that they actually had a calendar that was based on the movements of the entire galaxy. They were measuring where the Earth is placed in the entire galaxy. No one truly knows how they were able to do that, but we strongly believe is that because they were so in tune with everything, not only from a rational perception, but being able to connect with that which is transcendental allowed them to also make groundbreaking, discoveries in the sciences as well. And so just to know where the Earth is located in the galaxy, I think most of us don't. But they kept track of all those things. They have um, one of their calendars is the most accurate mathematically in the entire history of the world. They were truly remarkable when it comes to the sciences. And yet they managed to keep themselves in tune with nature, and none of their constructions were invasive towards nature. They only took from nature what was solely necessary for their survival, and they asked for permission from Mother Nature for doing that. They were not just destructing, and as we do nowadays, sadly. And just the teachings and the way of living was completely different. They were in tune with nature, yet they were super advanced. They had an irrigation system, for example, that came all the way from Mexico to Honduras, that took water from the ocean, took the salt away from the water, and provided clean water for people in countries it's bigger, or not bigger, but almost the size of the Great Wall of China.
Wow.
It's amazing, and we don't know those things, and they were doing this a long, long time ago. So it's truly remarkable, and just the lifestyle was different too. And it is in indigenous communities, we still see some of these things are still very much alive. For example, when a baby is born, the parents bring the baby to the ahkij. Ahkij, by the way, is like the spiritual leaders of the communities, and they are called the counters of time, the keepers of time, and the keepers of energies too. And so they're in charge of, there's 7 calendars, and the sacred calendar is called Cholkij. It has 260 days and 260 energies, which are believed to be the energies that form this reality, which is an illusion, but I'll get to that later, according to the Mayans. And every person is born in a day with an energy, and that person is born with that central energy. And so the Mayans, what we do is a cross of energies for the people that are born. So you're born, we look at the energy of the day in which you're born. We look at the energy of the day in which you were conceived. We look at the energy of your destiny, so where you're headed in your life, what the purpose of your life is. We look at the energy that was brought to you by your parents and how it's going to affect you throughout your life, the energies of your parents. We look at your skills, we look at your weaknesses. And so when a baby's born, they bring him to the ahkij, and the ahkij can tell the parents already, okay, this baby's going to struggle with this and this and that. They're going to be great at this and this and that. So when you're raising him, celebrate his skills and celebrate his strengths. And also, you already know what weaknesses this baby's going to have, so you can, while raising him, work on those weaknesses so they can grow up to be a whole human being. So, like my father used to say, in the Mayan world, there were no existential crises. It's like we have right now. Everybody knew uh, what they were meant to do, what the purpose of their life was. And that doesn't mean you're forced to do specific tasks or jobs, but you already can work with yourself and with your energy, and you know why you're here, what you're supposed to work on during this lifetime. So all of these things, imagine if education was that personalized in the Western society. The world would be a very different place, probably. So that's what they achieved as a civilization, as a society, that and much, much more. And so that's who the Mayans are. And just going back to 2012, right? We never said that. So it became really famous. We don't know why. I think I, no one really knows who said that and why it, became such a huge, big thing. Um, so 2012, the 21st of December of 2012, was actually a very special day. Um, it was the end of a Vaktun, which is a period of 5,200 years, and the beginning of a new Vaktun, 13 Vaktun. So in the Mayan civilizations, we have different stages of civilization and humanity and society and energy that affects us. And um, every period has been affecting people in a different way, and has, in certain periods, there was a period of the mind, of discovering rational thinking, of discovering the fire, of just finding balance as a society. The last period was supposed to be a period, the last 5,200 years was supposed to be a period of manifestation and truly learning how to use the power of the mind to attract things towards yourself. And my dad used to say, we failed that one. That's what it was supposed to be. And that energy is there. But uh, all the elders agree that people got stuck in the rational in the previous period, in the period which was supposed to help us develop our mind and the rational thinking and the sciences and the factfulness. We got stuck, and then we were supposed to pass into that which is a little bit subtle energy, and just understanding how you can actually make use of that quantum field, for the lack of a better word, to truly attract things towards yourself and manifest what you want in life. And this 13 Baktun, the new after 2012, the new period, is supposed to be, is reigned by the element of ether, which is beyond the four elements already. And it's beyond manifestation. It's supposed to be a period of absolute consciousness and awakening of the human beings, of becoming transcendental, of truly connecting and understanding, but not only from the mind, but through feeling and through living, that we are not truly individual.
Yes.
You perceive yourself as you, I perceive myself as I, as me, but we are truly connected to everything that exists. We don't live in existence, we are existence. We are part of everything that is. Very interesting. The Mayans call God the 1,000-faced God because it represents itself in every single person, in every single thing, which doesn't mean special, more special than you are, or you are more special than other people, because we're all equally sacred and divine according to the Maya Geo-Cosmovision. And so that's what 2012 marked. A new era, an era for humanity to be able to awake. And we are seeing this. And there were predictions people are going to start coming closer to spirituality. And that's exactly what's happening. Still, the first 13 years of that period are supposed to be years of true conflict, because 13 is a very important number in the Mayan civilization. It also marks the childhood, when you're a child until you're 13 years old. And so it's that period of adapting. It's almost as if society was acting like a child, which we kind of are. So, they predicted, politicians will be acting like children. There's going to be a lot of conflict. There's going to be, people will start rising up, and all of these things, they're not like predictions in the sense of like someone just being able to read the future. Is just marked energies that are marked in the Mayan calendar. So that's 2012. That's,
Mm.
yeah, not the end of the world.
And it's so interesting because for me, I grew up in a household where my parents, when I was a teenager, they started exploring different ancient traditions and different spaces within what we would call the spiritual path. Um,
Mhm.
I find always so interesting how I like through my parents and through my own studies and practices, I studied Tibetan Buddhism, and I studied different
Mhm.
energy healing techniques from South America and from other places, astrology, and there are the more that I practice and the more that I learn about this and the more that I learn about other cultures, including everything that you've just been sharing, it's incredible
Mhm.
how they are all talking about the same. It's just,
Yes.
like one is talking about this in using this word or making this ritual,
Exactly.
but it's all the same. And I find it so interesting, like in the different traditions that I studied, there's also
Mhm.
this concepts of the four bodies, like the same as you were saying from the Mayans. It's like you have as well the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. Then you have from an astrological standpoint, you have that the energies of what we're born into. And my mom, that she is an astrologer,
Mhm.
she would
Oh.
always she would always tell me that there's a lot of different ways of working with astrology, but her way wasn't about
Mhm.
prediction, was about understanding the energies and understanding how I can
Yes.
use that understanding of those energies to be like, okay, I have a tendency for that, or I have a tendency for that, or this is a good time to work on this. It's all about that understanding and developing myself
Yes.
as a whole human being, and how to be able to tap into my full potential. And I think that this is where a lot of people with a lot of things, like um, from an external standpoint, and I know this every time that I've been doing like different practices or rituals, that there is this
Mhm.
aversion. It's like, oh, like, what is this weird thing happening? Um, and it's the interesting um, stage of, at some point, if you're not born into this, is
Yeah.
going into it trusting and with full openness and being like, I have no idea what that is, but like it seems that it's working, and whatever I am doing, it seems that it's not working that well, so why not giving it a go?
Yeah. 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 I agree with what you're saying. It's very interesting because for someone who might not understand it yet, or just be maybe someone who's just getting started into like looking into it, that's skepticism of like, this is crazy. you know like, what is this? And so because we were not taught a lot of things, and it's very interesting because we were touching a little bit on how Western society is so focused on the mind, but even if we're so focused on the mind, we can't even control our own mind. Not even the thing that we truly believe in have we been able to master.
Mm,
And so it's, first of all, I want to say you are 100% right, and thank you so much for mentioning all extraordinary ancient cultures came to the exact same thing. All people that come closer to some form of really truly understanding what is reality, because that's it, what is existence, what is this. um, all people through different methods end up coming to the same conclusion. You can call it different names. It has, different words. In the Mayan, we call it Nacht, for example. Nacht is the Mayan word for space and time. So everything that exists, and that literally translates to the big illusion. And so the question is, what is an illusion, right? And so my dad used to love, he said this all the time. My dad was like, so we are living inside of space and time, and this is nothing but an illusion that was created by the people that existed, that exist, and that will exist. But it's an illusion that is heavy. It has mass, it has volume and colors and smells and sounds, and you can touch it and feel it and perceive it. And he was like, so it is an illusion, but if you try to cross the wall, you're going to hit your head. There's no way you're going to be able to avoid that, right? So what is an illusion? And so what Nah truly means is that everything is energy. We are purely vibration. And well, I could get a little bit deeper into that of everything is so perfect and everything is like this beautiful, amazing, majestic thing. But just in general, we're just vibration. And interesting, science nowadays is coming to the same conclusion, that all ancient cultures were like knowing this already thousands of years ago, but it wasn't until very recently that science started to be like, okay, yes, like actually that's true. And so in the Mayan world we find so many parallel things with neuroscience, with quantum physics, with and so it's that thing of you're saying people come and they're so scared because it's like, what is that? Oh, that's crazy. What if this is like, some weird stuff? But it's nothing weird. It's what every single culture in the world has come to for a long time already. Science is starting to prove it. And once you start getting into it and doing some research, you realize, okay, there's like a very strong point here. And as I said, these cultures, they all found balance, right? So it's not just what science is, but something that my father used to love to say is, okay, quantum physics is teaching us what everything is. The Mayans teach us what everything is, but how to make use of it too. For like finding purpose, living life to the fullest, and truly making use of these energies. And so it's not just about understanding, okay, what is this reality, but how do we make use of this reality? And there's this beautiful story. My father asked his teacher once, he was like, what is magic? And is magic like a thing? Do you guys call this, like, would you call it magic? And the teacher was like, oh yeah, of course, it's magic is just the technology that we use to be able to handle the energies which reality is conformed by. And so it's nothing like we've seen in the movies. It's just the fact that we are vibrating in certain states of being, and that we do have these energies, and everything is conformed by energy. So if you learn about your own energy, you can live a better life. And if you learn about the energy of every day, if you learn about the energies that are surrounding you and how they affect your personal energy, then that's an amazing tool that you can use to truly develop yourself and to be able to direct yourself wherever it is you want to be. For example, there is the conception in the Mayan world, there were four rays of creation. And I'm not going to get too deep into this right now, but according to the Mayans, how the universe was formed was Kakulha. And so there's four rays. The first was Chipika Kulha, which is perhaps the most relevant one for us, and it's the one that I want to talk about, but I'll just briefly mention the other ones. Then there is Rashka Kulha, which is the green ray, which is nature and the animals and the lakes and the trees and the mountains and the volcanoes and everything that is related to nature. Then there's Nimka Kulha, which is called the big house. And there's a little uh, disagreement on this one. Some spiritual leaders say that that refers to the earth, others say that it refers to the galaxy, and others go as far as saying that that refers to the entire universe. But in general, it just is the big house, which is where we live. So uh, the last one is Hun Rakan Kakulha, which Hun means one, Ra means foot, and Kan means snake. So the 1-foot snake. And this is the ray of the universe. So the Mayans say that the universe looks like a snake, like a spiral. You know, we say Hunracan sounds similar to huracan. In Spanish, that means hurricane. And so that's it. And it's very interesting because science has actually proved that that's actually the shape of the universe. They call it a macro worm. We call it a 1-foot snake. And everything that exists, space and time, everything that has a mass exists inside of this 1-foot snake of Hunrakan Kakulha. Outside there's void, there's nothingness. Inside of this exists Nacht, which is the big illusion, the reality that is conformed by us. So we talk about breaking the illusion and, hitting your head against the wall and all of that. Okay, the illusion, and this is where I want to talk about Chipika Kulha. Chipika Kulha is the small ray. The small ray for the Mayans is the human ray, the ray of the connection between the neurons and which is the synapse. And the synapse is the process that our brains have, and it allows us to take in reality, to understand reality, to perceive it, to be able to interact with it. And that is the ray of the mind. And so when we talk about Chipika Kulha, this is the ray that can allow us to control our personal reality. Because we were talking about recently with one of the spiritual leaders I work with, how people are victims of themselves. Because you and me and every single person listening to this and every single person in the world has 100% control over their own personal reality, whether you know it or not. So this is very interesting because we were like, okay, literally the majority of the people are suffering so much. And that is so interesting because we are truly in control. But the problem is we don't know it. And so if I think I actually wrote a post about this very recently, if you don't practice different techniques every single day to gain control over yourself, then you're not you. You are the result of your environment and of the people that surround you and what they're doing and what they're feeling and of what's happening around you. And you're just reacting, not responding, but just reacting to everything that comes your way. And that's not how we're meant to live, really. Because if your happiness depends on everybody around you acting the way you need them to act in order to be happy, if your happiness depends on the universe and life only bringing good things your way, then you're never going to be happy, because it's just a fact. Good things will happen to you and bad things will happen to you, and that will happen to everybody. And there's nothing you can do to stop that, nothing. But you can change yourself, you can change how you respond. And that's the key word. You have to respond and not react, because reacting means you're just taking out your emotions in whatever form they come to you without analyzing it first. And so we talk about being, well, zen. This is not a Mayan word, but just being zen. And what that means is, it doesn't mean I'm happy all the time. It doesn't mean I'm in like this enlightened state all the time. But before you can get to that state of true understanding of what the illusion is and vibrating with all of that beauty and perfection that is the universe, um, it's about really becoming aware. Okay, you know, I have these skills and I have these weaknesses, and I have the tendency to react in this way to certain things that trigger me in certain ways. And how do I make a commitment with myself to change that and to work on that until I get to a better state of existence for myself? And so that's what we're trying to do, and much more, of course. But that's one little part of what we're trying to share with people, that it is possible to vibrate in a different way and to take responsibility over your life and your personal reality.
Yes, it's so like I'm listening to you, and all of this resonates so much because this is what I do. This is what I practice. This is what I share with people. It's like I'm using other words, and I'm using like another like Geo-Cosmovision. But like at the end of the day, it's that is understanding. You know, like I, Brian, in this form and shape, I have the tools necessary to work
Hmm.
with this and to work with my experience. And I actually, like, just yesterday, I met up with a friend that I haven't seen for a while, and he was talking to me about, you know, this year and all of the ups and downs with work and like with the pandemic and
Yeah.
everything. And he was like asking me, "How are you?" And I'm like, "I'm great." And he was like, "And how have you been through all of this?" And I'm like, "I've been good." You know, like, yes, work has been up and down, like money has been up and down, things have happened, but
Hmm.
I I am okay because my experience is not
Hmm.
based on what is happening outside, whether that is good or bad, depending on my perception of that. I am still in control of how I respond to life and how I am with life. And I think that that has been for me, and it's continuing, of course, as you said earlier, like this is my journey. This is a lifetime of practice and of understanding. But I have been blessed enough that since an early age, I've been on this journey, I've been practicing, I had this understanding that
Hmm.
I am in control. And the more that I connect with myself in all of the different layers, the more that I understand my connection with the land as a very important aspect of society, that, as you mentioned before, like we started to not to disconnect from our natural world and started to
Hmm.
destroy it. And this is what actually now we are in so much turmoil, is like partly our disconnection
Yes.
from the elements, our disconnection from the land and from the nourishment that she gives us, and the disconnection from other people.
Hmm.
And you know, I like in the Buddhist tradition, like
Hmm.
reality is also like an illusion, and it's
Yeah.
all about, as well, what you were mentioning before, it's all about the practices and the steps that we can take in our life. So it's all about that empowerment. And I think that this is why, as you were saying before, and I know this from what I knew and not from the Mayan tradition, from 2012,
Hmm.
the energies of this new cycle of a few thousand years is that awakening. It's that stage of time that actually is going to change and shift the energies, yet
Hmm.
on an earthly basis of what we are living here every day, it's still tough. And as we go through the transitional periods, it's always a lot of upheaval and a lot of ups and downs, which is what we are seeing now. And I wanted
Yes.
to ask you, is there from the Mayan tradition, because I know that there's a lot of connection with the elements and with the earth and with the cosmos. Are there any what we would call meditation practices?
Yeah, of course. There are so many different practices. I think there's even practices that are similar to, Buddhist practices, but meditation. is something that we do a lot in connection to nature.
Mm,
And so, for example, we, as I mentioned before, the Cholquij, the sacred calendar of life, there are there's an energy for every day. And so, depending on the energy of the day, there are different practices that work better on that day than in other days. And so, keeping track of that is maybe it's hard to get used to, but once you do, it's really truly amazing.
mm,
So, for example, there's a day in which meditating at noon with the energy of the sun is something that really can bring you a lot of energy. Just
mm,
sitting under the sun, the when it's like right on top of you and just like bringing in that light. But also depending on you, on your own energy, there are better practices specifically for you. We work a lot with candles too. So we use fire a lot. We use fire in ceremonies, fire ceremonies, because fire is just one of those amazing tools that can connect you with those planes of existence that are just transcendental and higher spiritual planes of existence, if you will.
mm,
Um, but just knowing what your energy is also very beneficial because, for example, I had a guy ask me the other day, his energy is called Gan, okay, and it's actually the energy of the snake. People that are Gan have all of their energy deposited in their spine, specifically in their coccyx, but like throughout all of their spine. And people that are Gan, for example, are prone to have problems with their spine. And if they don't keep their spine under control, like their entire life will not be under control. It's like a very interesting connection between the physical and the rest of the existence. And so, people that are Gan, for example, I'm using one example. There's 260 energies, but people that are Gan have the tendency to have so much energy, but like so much energy. And so these people need to be able to let their energy out. So for these people, there are specific exercises that allow them to do that and that work better for them.
mm,
People that are Toch, for example, Toch is the payment. So people that are Toch should work with the fire and be grateful, because if people that are Toch don't practice gratefulness, that comes back to them. So, lighting candles every 20 days on their energy and just being grateful for what life has brought them is beneficial for those people. And I could give you 100 examples, but I won't.
mm,
But just the idea that with your own energy, you can work on things that are beneficial for you is very useful and very interesting. Or working with the energy of the day. So a day Tihaj is a good day to cut bad energy and to cleanse yourself, like with from all the bad, heavy energy that you've been accumulating in your life. And every day there's a different practice that you can do.
mm,
But yes, there's also general practices that obviously work for everybody. So just, meditation in connection with nature is something that is so powerful, especially with the energy of the earth, because we said Geo-Cosmovision, and Geo refers to the earth. And in a lot of traditions and practices, we think so much about the cosmos and how the planets are moving and affecting us, but also everything that's happened under us is so heavy, and we're so connected to the earth, and she's our mother. So, you know, earth can allow you to clean yourself, and also it can give you renewed energy, and it can bring you everything that you need. So connecting to the earth through consciously relaxing, and all the Mayan altars are in nature, as I mentioned before.
mm,
And there's the most interesting one, the most beautiful one. But for this, it's sadly something that you can't do yourself. You need a Mayan spiritual leader to actually do that for you. We have an exercise, not an exercise. It's a practice, a physical thing, which is called a pineal gland activation. And so, just as an example of one of the many practices that the Mayans know, this one is my personal favorite.
Mm,
Um, the elder can tap you in specific points of your head using the energy of the fire too. During ceremony, they do this. And so, tapping different points of your head and then holding your eyes in a specific position, you can get to a state of being that is in what many other cultures they would call enlightenment
mm,
for about 20 or 30 minutes. It's very interesting. It's a very beautiful, amazing experience. I would recommend everybody in the world to try this because it's truly beautiful what you can understand from this experience.
mm,
So, we work a lot with the points in the body. Like this one is with the brain, but there's also an unblocking practice where the elders like unblock the heavy energy in your body in specific ways. But a lot of the practices you need an elder to be able to do it for you. A lot you can do yourself. As I said, working with the fire. There's a beautiful candle exercise where you can hold two candles in front of you and work with the flame and able to be in order to be able to break the illusion, to break reality, and to see with your own eyes like beyond what our mind has constructed as reality,
mhm,
what you can see and touch and feel, and then you can see beyond that with these exercises. They all require, a bit of understanding of what you're doing, but in general, we always recommend anything that is related to just being present, being in the moment, making use of the elements of fire, especially working with candles, practicing gratefulness, which is something that we do a lot because when you vibrate with gratefulness, there's no way you can vibrate with stress or anxiety or depression. So yeah, there's a lot of practices. They
mm,
require. It would take me a little longer to explain them
yeah,
all in a deeper way, but we have so much.
mm,
We have um, I can give you one last example because this is something that everybody can do at home. We do it. There are specific 5 days in the year, but it can be done any time of the year. It doesn't, those days have a special energy, but it never hurts to do this, where we just write our entire history backwards. And so we make sure to understand, when you go back and to the past and remember, you can be like, oh, that's where this comes from, that's where that fears come from, that's why I'm acting like this. And just being able to see, I have to forgive that person and I have to ask for forgiveness too, because I actually hurt that other person too. And just, we work a lot with the going back to healing the past so that you can then do different practices that can bring you into the future with a lighter and better energy.
mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And it's, I find that with a lot of the practices that I do and listening to what you're sharing, that
Hmm.
these are simple things that anyone can do. This is one of the things that I tell everyone, like all of my clients and all of the individuals that come to my workshops, my events. There's nothing that, in a sense, you cannot do. Yes, of course, like
Yes.
there needs to be some guidance and someone that, as you mentioned, like perhaps an elder that knows because they have been doing this for a long time, they have some specific knowledge. But in general, a lot of the work that we're able to do is accessible. Yet,
Yeah.
the way that most of us have been conditioned in the Western world is in a very different way. And we think because we are in that illusion, as you mentioned, that
Yeah.
we are not able to do that, that we are a victim, as you mentioned, of our environment, and we are in this race that doesn't stop, and we cannot
Yeah.
catch ourselves, and we think that we don't have the time and we don't have, the tools to do that, whereas we all have it. And I am seeing, as you mentioned before, I am seeing many more people awakening to understanding that there's more to life than what they've been living, and that there's ways
Yes.
that they can connect in a deeper way. and and I know that we could be talking for hours or for a lifetime about this. So
Yes.
I'm just going to go to a last few questions. And the first one is,
Mhm.
what is a resource that you would recommend to people if they want to know more about the Mayan Geo-Cosmovision?
Yes, of course. So, um, I just want to say a little thing that you
Yes.
said that is very important, which is the key lies in simplicity. And that is so true. And that is something that we all say it's like the Mayan practices are so simple. It almost seems ridiculously simple. You're like, what?
Mm,
This can make such a big impact? And you're like, but how is it possible that something, so simple and small can make such a big impact? When you complicate yourself, you actually go further away from the answer. You don't
mm,
have to go around and do all those crazy things no, it's simple. It's very concrete. It's there, and there's so many practices that are there that are easy to follow, simple, and can make such a big change. So
mm,
that's something that I feel like is important. And thank you for saying that. I just wanted to touch on that a little because I found that to be very important. Now, resources. So yes, sadly, really, there's not enough out there. Truly, there's not enough out there. Uh, s- Many of the people that have been working with the Mayan stuff had to go as far as actually traveling to Guatemala and finding an actual indigenous spiritual leader to teach them or to share with them or to guide them through this process of healing. When my dad was alive, we had people coming from all over the world because it's hard to have that guidance because there's not enough out there, especially as most of the elders don't work with technology so much. And so the most authentic spirituality lies within the indigenous communities. Uh, that being said, there's a lot of information out there. I don't have a specific place that I would tell you go to this one place and check it out. There's books out there. There's, different people that, have their journeys like publicly that share information about the ancient Maya Geo-Cosmovision. There's a lot of things out there that are also not authentic Mayan Geo-Cosmovision as well. I think that's worth mentioning because it's to be careful with that because sadly the majority of the things out there are not authentic, and so just keeping that in mind. uh, there's a lot of information that's like mixed between Mayan and other things, which is fine, but it's just not Mayan. So but it's called Mayan, so that's the where the confusion
mm,
comes. But yeah, truly, uh, right now that we have the pandemic is not so easy. And it's also never easy, even without the pandemic, to go to Central America to find, you know, an authentic spiritual leader there. Uh, but it's worth, researching. My dad, of course, if you research Carlos Barrios, you'll find a lot of information. He was, as I said, one of the most renowned Mayan elders in the world, especially because he really tried to get out there with his message to the Western society, and he was one of the first to try to bring it to everybody and
mm,
not just keep it in Guatemala, not because people are trying to keep it, but because he thought this can be so helpful.
mm.
That's what I can say.
Wonderful. It's so interesting, as you say, like there's so much information there, and nowadays as well, so much misinformation that we
Yeah.
have to actually do a lot of work into just checking and making sure that whatever we are looking into actually is authentic or not. So yeah, that's a lot of work that we all need to do. And if you have to share one tip for people to actually be more in balance and in tune, what
Yeah.
would you say?
Well, there's so many tips, but I'll try to stick with one. So I think the key truly, as we said before, is to stop lying to yourself, really. There's a story I'm going to tell briefly. My favorite story from all the teachings that my dad had. He asked one of his teachers, they were deep, deep in the mountains of Guatemala, and he was with one of his first teachers, and he asked the teacher, why are people in Western society so confused and have like so much money sometimes, so much more than we have here, more material goods, but are so, you know, in existential crisis in this like really bad mode of existence? And the teacher was like, oh, well, easy. I can explain you in one metaphor why. So he said, here in this community where they were, uh, they teach us some key things since we're little. So it becomes natural for us to make use of those key things. But for the people in the Western society, they're never taught these things. They have to be victims of their environment or and of their parents or friends or family and of themselves, um, of their subconscious mind and of everything that they've absorbed since they're kids without the understanding of how to control that. And so he said, if you imagine, I always tell this story, it's so wonderful. So he said, if you imagine that your mind is a horse carriage, a horse carriage is an amazing tool because horses are strong. They can lead you anywhere you want to be. You want to go somewhere, they can bring you there. And all you have to do is like sit there and lead them towards that direction. And here we know how to do that. But he said in the Western society, what happens with their horse carriage, with their mind, is they're sitting there in their horse carriage and one of the horses leaves. So they have to jump off and start chasing the horse and start trying to bring it back to where it's supposed to be, and struggle so much to do this. And finally, they bring the horse back just to find out another one is gone already. And then the same thing, run and try to catch the horse and try to bring it back to come back and find that another one is gone. And just like this all day long, chasing horses, chasing thoughts, chasing whatever form of sabotage sometimes we use with ourselves that keeps us from doing what we're supposed to be doing, to really follow that path. But we have control over our mind, and that's the mind. And if you know how to use it, it can be so useful. It can be like a horse carriage. It can lead you wherever it is you want to be in life, no matter what your goals may be. Um, but if you don't, this is not a tool, but it actually takes control over you. I mean, how exhausting to be chasing these horses all day long, every day. And then you stay still, you're not moving. I mean, you are moving, but not really. And so that's what I would tell you is there is so much information out there. There is so much. There's so many practices that you can follow. There's so much that you can learn and do. But in the words of my father, action, you have to take action. There's no, you can, I mean, you can learn, for example, about fitness. You can read books on fitness, watch videos of people teaching you what the best exercises are to keep fit. But if you don't go out and exercise, you're never going to be fit. And the same with the emotions, with the mind, with the body, with the spirit, with everything. So it's about learning and taking action. And sometimes that's hard to get there, but there is absolutely no reason in the world why There's no one in the world that cannot get there. Everybody has the same potential to be able to do that. So there's no excuse when it comes to growth and healing. Yeah.
Mm, yes,
That's my tip.
yes, and I love that because with conscious action, like that is one of the biggest things that we really focus on is that it's raising awareness and learning, but we don't want to stay there, as you mentioned. Like we need to put this into practice and understanding. Okay, what's the next step? It's just one step at a time, making things simple, making things that work for me, and my action is going to be different than your action and anybody else's action. But we all need to do that. And talking
Exactly.
about action and from a personal level, what has been your latest small act of kindness?
My latest act of kindness. That's a hard one because I've been at home all the time with this pandemic. So I've been kind to my husband, but probably the latest act of kindness that I had towards a stranger or another person was we're always going to Guatemala, of course, because that's where I'm from. And sadly, it's actually very terrible. The situation in Latin America, as you know, because you're
Mhm.
also from there, is not so great. People live in extreme poverty in some cases, and in general, people struggle a lot. And there's a lot of families that see themselves forced to put their children to work after school or even not go to school so that they can go on the street. Guatemala is very touristic, so there's a lot of people, and so the kids go on the street and sell cigarettes and chewing gum and candy to the tourists. And even at night while people are partying, you see little 5-year-old kids coming to you like, "Do you want cigarettes?" I'm like, "Whoa, this is, obviously very wrong."
Mm,
Um, so I became friends with a few of the kids and I always buy them like juice or some candy or, maybe not the healthiest thing, but I'm like, well, at least they can have a little bit of a good time.
mm,
So I became friends with a few of the kids on the street and they're so awesome. Which,
mm,
if anyone is hearing this and they can help those countries in any way, please do because it's really there's that difference between looking at a kid who has opportunities and looking at a kid on the street,
mm.
and they're the same kids, just
Yes.
with you know growing up in a bad situation. So that's
Yeah.
that's that's the one.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, it's challenging. I think that the situation just in general has been challenging for a lot of people, and of course the pandemic has exacerbated that and has made it
Yeah.
more challenging because the places that even were already struggling with all of the tourism as a main income, now there's not that. So it's a very interesting
Yeah.
place. But yeah, and lastly,
Yeah.
one last question. What is the one thing that you wish that everyone in the world knew?
The one thing that I wish everyone in the world knew. That's a good question. I wish everyone in the world knew that all these problems that you have are absolutely unnecessary. Because, oh my gosh, they are legit. They are real. All suffering, big or small, okay, it's real. But also, the same suffering is not only your teaching, your lesson, your superpower. It can become like the thing that can lead you wherever it is you want to be in life. But also, we touched so much in the topic of the illusion, so I think I have to mention this. According to the Mayans, and as we talked about, most civilizations, everything is an illusion, and the meaning of this is the universe is so massive. There's no way you could picture it with your mind. No way. Like we're incapable of being able to picture it with our mind. The galaxy is so huge. we can't picture it with our mind. We can't understand how big the universe is, how immense the galaxy is. Even picture we can't even fully comprehend the earth. We live here and we don't know like how the air moves, the water moves, the what's happening under the layers of the earth and the outer layers of the earth. We don't know. And we barely even understand ourselves a lot of the time. But we sit here with this mind problem. We're like, oh, this is the end of the world. This is the worst thing ever, you know? We sit here with our ego and we fight each other. We create war. We destruct the planet. We're doing so many bad things. But we forget that this entire existence that is so beautiful is not individual from us. We're not like we are this tiny thing that exists like a speck of dust flying around the universe. But at the same time, we are sacred and divine because we are that. We are the universe. It's perhaps hard to, it's a difficult concept to explain, but we are one with everything that exists. But like, I don't mean figuratively, I mean literally. We perceive ourselves as individual, but we are truly part of this existence and we are connected to it. So we have to stop defining ourselves as just me, because when we do that, we are not in tune with the universe. We're not in tune with reality. We are not in tune with existence. And when you're not in tune with existence, you're not fully in balance. Because in order to be in balance, you have to also understand your spiritual body, and that's what this is just the oneness of everything, to connect to everything that exists. So yes, your problems are legitimate. I understand that, we feel and we have emotions, but vibrate with gratefulness, because truly, uh, we all have this amazing infinite potential to do whatever it is we want to do in life. Sometimes we're even addicted to our problems. And it's just blurring us from seeing the big picture. And the big picture is not some metaphor. The big picture is actually everything that's happening around us, but that we're too distracted to see.
Mm.
And once you stop and you open your eyes a bit, you'll see that all these ego problems that you have, and by ego I don't mean I think I'm the best only, but everything that is the mind, the thoughts and the mind and all the things that happen inside of us, they are not so important. Vibrate with yourself, vibrate with others, vibrate with everything that is, and just try to connect yourself to everything, because there's no reason to suffer. Seriously. It's hard. It's easier said than done. I
Yes.
understand, but but truly, just open yourself up to the concept and maybe think about it, and try to practice gratefulness is always a good path to get there.
Mm.
So that's
Wonderful.
that's what I wish the world would knew would know. I
Wonderful.
mean,
Yes,
yeah.
that's wonderful. And lastly, if people want to learn a little bit more and want to perhaps get in touch with you, where can they do that? How can they find you?
Yes. So, as I said, I am the founder of the Mayan Wisdom Project. And the Mayan Wisdom Project is this wonderful space we created and we're still developing, because it's never ending. We can always make it better, but it's a space where we open up, a platform for the authentic indigenous Mayan spiritual leaders of Guatemala and of Central America to be able to share their message with the world. As I said before, they have had a bit of an issue with technology in the past, and so they haven't had the opportunity, not because they don't want to, but because they haven't had access to a place where they can truly share with the world. And so that's what we're doing with the Mayan Wisdom Project. So you can visit our website at mayanwisdomproject.com, and what we do is we have an academy, so people can come in and just learn a bit of what we talked about today, but also much more. We go deep into all these topics. So we explain to people through meditations, as you were asking about, and video courses and webinars with the indigenous leaders. And we have practical exercises. So we teach people, what the Maya Geo-Cosmovision is, but we also give them practical exercises so that they can truly get to know how to get there, to
Mm,
this better state of existence, and just come to being able to achieve any goal it is they may have. We
mhm,
do it all through a community. We have a community within the academy because we believe too that it's important to have that, support from other people that are in the same path, and that always keeps you going, and it enables you to really get there. And so that's a little bit of what we do. And
mhm.
you can, of course, find us on Facebook and on Instagram as the Mayan Wisdom Project. And yeah, that's what we do. So
Awesome.
feel
And
free
yes,
to come and visit. Yeah.
yes, I really recommend everyone to, if what we shared during this episode resonated with you and you want to learn more, to go and check it out. I'll put as well the link on the episode notes so that it's easy to access it. But thank you so much, Solveig, for taking the time to be here with us to share your wisdom and the wisdom from the Mayan Geo-Cosmovision perspective. Thank you so much for taking the time late at night, where you are now in Germany. Um, and I'm looking forward to having more conversations with you and sharing more of this, because these are the times when this is needed. So thank you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you. And thank you everyone that has been listening. If you have learned something, I hope that you can share it with us, write in the comments, wherever you find this episode. We'd love to know what resonated with you and what you learned. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Yay.